This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. My guest on this edition of the program, former senior magistrate Patrick Jagasaw. He's somebody who's had life-changing experiences of one kind or another. He was one of the country's youngest magistrates at the time, at 26, and then became a senior magistrate. He served prison time on conviction of corruption, and he did that time, came out, and is a different person altogether. He says his life now is the basis of the dictates of God's intervention. He's our guest on this edition of the program. Good to see you.
Same here, Andy.
All right. Well, let's talk about what you do now. What your life involves now.
Well, I'm a very old man now. I give a lecture at UWI at the Faculty of Social Sciences. I was invited by Professor Arjun many years ago, and I also give a lecture at the Legal Aid Clinic at the Whiting Law School. And so basically that is what,
so you do that sort of standard, you do these lectures sort of periodically?
Yeah, once a semester at UWI.
Yeah.
As I said, at the Faculty of Social Sciences, Professor Arjun.
Right.
And I get a call from Israel Khan from time to time.
Yeah. That's Professor Valmiki Arjun?
No.
Okay.
Surendra Arjun.
Okay, yeah. And you say you get a call every now and then from Israel Khan?
Well, from the
Law Association.
The Whiting Law School.
Yeah, okay. And so you talk there?
I give a lecture to the students.
Yeah, about what?
Ethics.
Ethics. Yeah.
That's what I've been invited to do.
Yeah. And I mean, so people see you as somebody who can speak to that from personal experience and so on.
I suppose so. You'll have to ask them why Patrick was invited. It's for Professor Arjun, it's an elective course.
Yeah.
There are core courses that you have to take. This is
that's elective ethics in,
yes.
in the legal profession. Why should that be elective as opposed to compulsory?
I'm not sure. The university makes that decision.
Yeah.
What is elective and what is not elective. This is what Professor Arjun has told me over the years.
Right. So to what extent you draw on personal experience, quite apart from looking at philosophy of ethics, and
well, you're speaking to a man who had no ethics in doing what I did.
Right.
I accepted a bribe from a man, and I was told by a friend of mine that I am in the Guinness Book of Records. I thought, he said, not because of what you did, because you accepted a bribe from a man by a check. He said, you don't accept bribe. Well, my grandmother used to say, when you don't know about people's business, you must keep out of it. And having been, you said, as the youngest senior magistrate in the world, I was informed by the Commonwealth Magistrates Association of that position. And I just wanted, when that happened to me, my whole world just came crashing down. I never went to church, I never prayed, I never read the Bible. I don't know, it just wasn't my kind of thing. And here I am in serious crisis. I just wanted to die, I said, leave me alone, let me just die. Because the shame, the disgrace, the humiliation was so great, was so overwhelming. A lady came to me and said, a friend of the leaders, come and go to a prayer meeting and give your life to Jesus and he will help you.
She came, you
go to the home. I met a lot of good people. Some people were speaking about what I had done, and very rightly so. But the other people, I saw the goodness and the kindness and the support from people who I didn't know, perfect strangers. And Mr. Jagasaw, we all make mistakes in life. These things happen. Started to pray with me and support me, and was just overwhelmed by people's care and love and concern for old Raj.
You think there were moments when you say you wanted to disappear, you wanted to take your life?
There's no moments, Andy. When it happened, I wanted to die. The shame, the disgrace was so overwhelming. I just leave me alone, let me just die.
Because but you didn't take any action specific to that?
No. It just was in my mind. Thoughts going through my mind. And,
because I want to tell you, at the time, I was a reporter up and coming in the Express, and Carlton Khan was the court reporter, and I can tell you he was heartbroken about it because, he used to talk about going to courts when you were presiding, and covering cases and so on, and sort of what a kind of majestic presence you had in the court.
Majestic presence.
And
But I have a vague memory of Mr. Khan, who was a journalist. But I want to tell you, I went to that prayer meeting. I had an encounter at that prayer meeting, and something happened to me there. I didn't want to go. You know, sometimes you find yourself doing something, you don't know why. Something was just propelling me, took control of my mind. Never had this experience before. I found myself at this prayer meeting. I said a prayer which they said to give your life to Jesus. I didn't believe in all of this, Andy. I really didn't believe in all of this. So I went to this prayer. We said a prayer, and something happened to me that night. You know, I said before that I was standing against a concrete wall, not knowing. Something propelled me to get here. These people are praying, and I don't know what they're doing. And I'm standing against this concrete wall. And the lady says, those of you who are here for the first time and never given your lives to Jesus, come up. Well, I didn't know what I was doing there. Come up where? A hand comes through a concrete wall where I'm standing, grabs me by my collar like this, and literally catapults me forward.
You mean physically?
But I felt a hand.
Yeah.
I was standing against a concrete wall at the back. I was ashamed. I didn't want anybody to see me. I said, look, here's Jagas, a magistrate taking bribes, now playing this big Christian coming to prayer meetings. That would have been the truth, unfortunately. So I went to the back of the hall and I stood up. And when the lady said, come up and say this prayer and give your life to Jesus, if you have not done that already. I don't know, I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't know what I was doing there. And a hand comes through. I felt a hand physically come through this concrete wall where I was standing and catapulted me forward. When I went back, I went to see the hole in the wall, you know.
To see where
the hand came from. So I can't tell you, I went up and I gave my life to Jesus, and I just didn't happen like that. And then a whole change took place. It's like if I had a different mind. The old mind of fear and anxiety and worry. It came from time to time, but it was something happened to me. A nun told me many years ago, Jesus touched you, Patrick Jagas, brought this change in my thinking. And a lot of people say, I saw good. I didn't know these people. They were so honorable and praying, Mr. Jagas, the Lord will help you, Mr. Jagas, this, that, and the other. And so I went to court, and really expecting from what all these people were saying to me. I remember the whole of justice. Sat Sharma, Sat became our Chief Justice many years later, and a secretary came down and said to me, the morning when we were going for the last day of the trial, the secretaries in the whole of justice, the judge's secretaries, something happened to them, and the Lord had them praying for you, Mr. Jagas, and this and that. She said she went into the court that morning, and she saw angels all around this court, so she just prostrated herself. So poor little me thinking, well, this is your victory, you know. Case ended, the foreman of the jury came back, and I'm looking at this man, extremely confident that all these people told me God has a plan for me and this, that. And when that man said, how do you find the accused, Jagas? And he said, guilty. Now, we had a good legal point in that. It's not going to discuss a legal point, but the thing about it is that I was confident that God could work a miracle and set me free. When that man said guilty, the last thing I remember was the leader cried out, you know. And, I said to myself, maybe, Lord, I'm such a wretch. You know, I never went to church, never prayed. I had no time for that kind of thing, you know. Maybe you just can't help a wretch like me. And then I heard my lawyers were putting a plea in mitigation to the judge, who was Tony Lucky, Justice Lucky. Tony was a colleague. Yeah. Anyway, so that this man's life is finished. There's no need to send him to prison, you know. Let him pay a fine. His life is finished, it's ended. A senior magistrate found guilty of corruption. And I heard a voice say to me, look at him. No, I really don't know. You know, sometimes your mind speaks to you, your mind tells you certain things. This mind was telling me, look at him. So I don't know why I said, Lord, is that you speaking to me? And the voice said, yes. And I said, look at whom?
That is in the court.
I'm sitting in the dock.
Yeah.
Look at the judge. So I looked at the judge, it was Tony Lucky.
Anthony Lucky.
And he says, the boy said to me, when he went to sleep last night, he didn't have a clue what would happen to him when he got up this morning. Whether it would be a rainy day, or it would be sunny. You know, sometimes you go to bed and you get up feeling tired. So I said to the voice, I'm trying to speak. I don't understand what you're trying to say to me. The voice said to me, the point I am trying to make to you, my son, is your fate and your destiny is not in his hands. He does not even know what will happen to him today. How will he know what will happen to your life today? So it is not Justice Anthony Lucky who is sending you into prison. This is part of my plan for for your life. It's the first time in my life, Andy, I heard about that there was a plan for my life.
Yeah.
I said, part of your plan is for me to go into prison and die, because I was going to die in that.
Yeah, well, I want to tell you that coming forward a little bit, the first time we met after you'd come out, it was one afternoon. So I'm at Radio Trinidad now, and Margaret Alcock had this time between 1 and 4 called what is it, Family Focus, in which she would then sublet pieces of that time between 1 and 4 to different people. And you'd had been in there one day. That's the first time I'd seen you after that conviction and so on. But something about you said, this is a reformed person. The conversation that we had, you weren't apologetic, you weren't sort of retreating in the presence of people at the time. And I said, we had a chat then, and I said, between then and when you called me a couple of weeks ago, something been nursing in my head, and I started wanting to get in touch with you, and there you called me. I was in this pet shop, and you said that something moved you to call me. And I said, well, I've been trying to reach you because I think we should have a conversation after all these years. And that led to now.
But what I'm telling you about that, the boy said to me, this is part of your plan. I said, well, part of your plan, Lord, is for me to go into that prison and die. Will you accept what is part of my plan for your life? And I said, well, so I eventually ended up in prison. I appealed because we felt our lawyers, Alice York, Suhan, they're all judges in the Court of Appeal today.
No, yeah.
And we felt that there was a misdirection to the jury, so we appealed, and the appeal was heard by Justice Clinton Bernard, who was the Chief Justice, and 2 other judges. They heard the appeal, and they dismissed the appeal and said that Jagasa has to serve this time of imprisonment. And when I was in that prison, if somebody came to me, prison is an extremely hard place. If somebody had come to me and said, Patrick Jagasa, Jesus Christ has told me to tell you that he has a plan for your life. He will take you one step at a time and show you that plan. He will give you the grace to obey him. He will do everything. And you see that Chief Justice who is sitting in the Hall of Justice right now, Justice Clinton Bernard, who dismissed your appeal, one day he will pass away. And there will be a state funeral. His coffin will be draped in the national flag of Trinidad and Tobago. 6 soldiers will bring it up in the church. His daughter will read the eulogy on behalf of the family. And Jesus Christ will send you to that state funeral where you will read the eulogy on behalf of the judges of this country.
And that happened?
That is not possible, Andy. I'm in a jail, and you tell me I'm good. Jesus Christ, I know that people say Jesus could do everything. I didn't know it at the time. That is not possible. When it happened, Her Excellency, Paula was a judge in the court. She was a judge in the Court of Appeal. She should have read the eulogy or have spoken on behalf of the judiciary. Ivor was there. Ivor Archie was the Chief Justice. He should have not. How did it happen to Patrick Jagasa? That day in that church, I was very emotional, saying to myself, Lord, help me not to break down here and cry, because this is not possible. But it happened. And I see how the Lord, I met Tony Camono. Tony was a colleague too, at the bar. I went to Long Circle Mall, I think November last year, to get something for my watch, the battery. So I went to the food court after to get something. And whilst the tall man is standing in front of me, and he turns around and said, hi Patrick, how are you? So I realized it was Tony. So we had a little chat, and he said, let's sit in the food court at Long Circle Mall. And he's telling me about his life, and he was the prosecutor. He represented the DPP chambers.
He was in the DPP's office at the time.
And Teddy Guerra had the fiat to prosecute, a senior counsel, and Tony was from the DPP's chambers, junior counsel today. So he was part of the prosecuting team. And so we were having a chat, and he told me after that he was appointed the deputy, got promotion, and then one day he was appointed a High Court judge. And he applied subsequent to that, he applied to the International Court of Justice for a position as a judge. He was interviewed and he was successful.
And you got it.
And so he resigned from the judiciary, and the last working day was a Friday. And he left court around 2:30. He was being driven home, heading to Port of Spain. He said he got a call, and the person on the line says, is this Justice Camono? He said, it is. Can you hold for a call from the Prime Minister? He said, certainly. A voice came on and said, Justice Kabona. He said, this is Kamala Prasad Bisasa. So, Prime Minister, how are you? He said, fine. He said he wanted to meet with him, but he told her that he was leaving on Wednesday to go to The Hague. Everything is packed. And he went, that afternoon, I think he met with her. She told him of what the cabinet had taken a decision to appoint him as the president. And so he said he accepted the position as president.
But he had to go and come back. And so.
No, he informed them that he's not accepting this position. I don't know the details, but he did not go with his appointment.
Take up the position in the Hague.
Yes, he accepted the position as president. There's a man called James Aboud. James Aboud is a judge in the court, the Court of Appeal right now. His father was a man called Jimmy
Aboud, Textile King.
Well, Textile King, everybody knows Jimmy Aboud, the Textile King. He passed away, and there was a funeral at St. Finbar's, our parish. This is my parish. Mr. Aboud has Jimmy Aboud. Well, James's daughter is a lady called Linda Aboud. Linda is a beloved sister of mine. And at that funeral, she asked me if I would serve communion. So I said, by all means, it's such a great privilege to serve the Lord. Anyway, when time for communion to be served, I had this bureau in my hand. There's a nun from the Missionaries of Charity on my left. And in the front pew of this church is the president, Anthony Carmona. He's sitting to the side of Ivor Archie. Ivor is a Pentecostal, so he wouldn't come to communion, to receive communion. So the president is sitting there. I have this bureau in my hand, but the man just wouldn't come up. So I'm not sure if there's a protocol. I should go and serve him communion. So I'm waiting to see what to do. I'm really confused. He just simply wouldn't come up. And I'm waiting. The judges behind him are going to this nun. And I didn't know what to do. A minute or two elapsed, And then eventually he came. He's telling me that day last year at Long Circle Moor, he said, Patrick, did you realize I was hesitant in coming up? I said, I saw that, Tony. I don't know why you did. I don't know what to do. He said, do you know why I was so hesitant in coming to receive communion? I'm saying to myself, I am not worthy to receive communion from a man like that. From you, Patrick Jagger.
Why you felt so?
Well, he just, something about this man's life, he said, that was transformed, that he didn't feel. Imagine this man is saying, the prosecutor, the president of the country, he did not feel himself worthy to receive communion from a man like me. Andy, there's a saying that sometimes God looks for a good wretch. And when he finds that wretch, he takes that wretch's life and transforms that wretch and presents that wretch and says, look what I have done. And there's a song, I want to interrupt, there's a hymn that says, Amazing Grace that saved a wretch like me. When I hear that, Andy Johnson, sometimes I cry because I did nothing to deserve this, nothing. St. Paul writes in the second letter to the Corinthians, for every man who is in Christ, he's a new creation. The old man has gone, and now the new man is here. It is all God's work. So the transformation that has taken, I did nothing.
Yeah, you don't take any credit for it.
Absolutely none.
I want to go back a little bit and ask you, if your time in prison, did you run into people who you had committed to prison, and what was that like? What was that like?
Well, it was very challenging, frightening at times. You meet people in prison who you've sent to prison, you're expecting the worst. It is in there that, sometimes God works God's ways and not man's way. God put me in a place there for 3 years, I had no job to go to. I didn't get up in the mornings. Sometimes you're busy, you have to get up, you have to get to Toronto school on time, you have to do this, you have so many things to do. I sat in that cell all alone at the beginning. It's a hard place, a lot of suffering. And I met men sometimes who I'd sent to prison. A man would say to me, he called me Jaggy, you remember me? I said, no, and people will tell me. I had one encounter with a man. One night, this man was there, and a man came back. When a man comes back from prison, you don't tell him, and he had 25 years and 25 strokes. I think it was a robbery, a rape, whatever. So he was very annoyed and angry. And when people come back from prison like that, leave them alone. But this man came back. He was placed in our cell. And he was angry and looked at Jagger, sir. You see who Jagger, sir? No, I've sentenced him to some term of imprisonment. Where when you're sitting in your big black suit in court, all this police are around you, I'm going to deal with you tonight, and this. And people are saying when in situations like that, you must pray. So you're seeing death facing you. And this thing, I'm like somebody was strong, I couldn't breathe. And I know what happened. A man was sitting there, and he said to him, his name was Foots. He said, Foots, before you get to Jagas, you have to come to me. The man went and sat down, and Foots ran to him, and they started to fight. So a couple of weeks later, I asked this man, I said, why would you, what happened?
You buy that fight, so to speak.
He said he lived in Navaditi.
Mova.
And he used to sell drugs. He said it was something I did. The police came to his house and raided the house, and the drugs was found in his wife's suitcase, so she was charged with him. And he said he went to court and said to the magistrate, who was Mr. Jagasa, this is not my wife's doing. The police just charged her with me. I accept full responsibility for this. And Mr. Jagasa listened and believed his story and freed his wife and sentenced him. I can't remember what it was. So he was saying, you're a fair man to me. And, so I couldn't see this man. And the same man later on was a very strange experience.
As Foots.
Yeah, Foots and I became, one day he was there, and he came to me and said that he had another case in court, and he wanted me to pray for him. And there was a bonding that was taking place between this former magistrate and these prisoners. Only Jesus could have done that, As if we became, one people, one group of men suffering together on a journey together. It was an extraordinary
So in a real sense, your transformation began behind bars.
Absolutely. Well, it started a couple of months before, a year before. The Bible was the most boring book I ever read. I want to be very honest. And the leader brought me a Bible one day as a gift. Your wife would buy you a gift, a pen, a shirt, a briefcase, something. She brought me a Bible and said, you seem to be, man's law is interesting to you. Why don't you read God's law? So where would you find God's law? In the Bible. And I read it, and it was the most boring book I ever read in my life. But what really changed my life, I went to what is called a Life in the Spirit seminar. Yeah. And people say that your life will change, and I don't know. I went to that seminar not knowing anything. It's about one day a week for 7 weeks, and at the end of it, they will lay hands on you and pray for the baptism of the Holy Spirit and the Holy Spirit. I just listened.
And you get a word and so on.
For my life, I heard in my home, from my mother, from my grandmother, from family, that Christian people believe that Jesus Christ is God. You've never seen God. God sent His Son into this world. So when you saw Him, you saw Jesus. He was crucified on a cross at Calvary, and He died there. As far as I was concerned, in my ignorant state of mind, He was still on that cross. But the day hands were laid upon me for the baptism of the Holy Spirit, it is as if Jesus Christ walked off of that cross and walked straight into my heart. And my life started to change in a most dramatic way. That Bible, that was the most boring book I ever read, simply came alive. I started to see the later family in a totally different way. I had a new mind, Andy. I did nothing to deserve it. A new mind, a new thinking. I experienced a peace. It grew and it grew and it grew. Today, I live in a mind where I can't even worry if you try. I mean, that sounds like, madness. But in John chapter 14, at verse 27, Jesus says, peace I bequeath to you. My own peace I give you.
With you.
A peace the world cannot give. This is my gift to you. So I didn't do anything to deserve that. It is a gift. Everything I have, every single thing that Patrick Jalasa has is gift from God to me.
Well, when we spoke a couple of days ago, you said you were in the chapel, or you were on your way, or...
In the chapel?
Yeah.
That's another gift. Everything I have is gift. I'm a parishioner of St. Finbar's, and we have a 24-hour adoration chapel. I just find, over the years, something after the Life in the Spirit, I would just go and sit before the monstrance. For we Catholics, that's the real presence of Jesus there. And I just find, over the years, I take my Bible, that book that was so boring, I've read it over these years. I'm not suggesting to you that I understood everything about it. But the word comes alive. It's just mercy, Andy. It is the mercy of Jesus Christ upon Patrick Jagasa. That is all it is. God looked at a sinner, looked at a wretch, transformed his life. And now I live day to day.
What are some of the reactions that you get from people in the way you live now? Are there people who are cynical? Or how do you wrestle with people, not physically, but sort of?
People are entitled to their opinions. I mean, somebody told me there's a radio station where Patrick Jarvis sings. People are entitled to their opinions, and I might have said the same thing. A man is a corrupt magistrate, went to prison, and he's a new man in Christ. So, how does that happen? So if some people maybe have very, concerns about whether there's any validity to this, or it is not man's doing, it is God's doing. But by and large, people, you see something about, sometimes you just see people and there's something about them. It's not my doing. So some people would see, some people may be skeptical, but people are entitled to their opinions. Yeah. And I would have probably thought like that, Yeah,
and so you don't take issues, you don't take things personally when and if at all people challenge your sincerity.
Most certainly not. They're entitled to their, and they are God's children too. I used to do the same thing. Am I any different to them? Do you know it will hurt the heart of Jesus Christ? You, Patrick Jarvis, sir, I've shown you so much. Everything about your life is my mercy. You now show mercy to other people when they don't fully understand. You were just like that. You lived in darkness all your life. So when people have questions, and maybe, as you say, question my self-preference. Don't use your, if I use my mouth to pull down, to judge, to condemn people who say these things, so anybody, do you know how that will break the heart of Jesus? You did the same thing. It is my mercy. Don't use your mouth to pull down, to judge, to condemn, to criticize. Use this mouth now to pray that I will do for them as I did for you.
Yeah, there's some of us who will mouth one thing, but in our minds we still hold on to resentment or hold on to feelings of difference, feelings of superiority or inferiority.
And when the Lord sets you free, when Jesus Christ sets a man free, this man, there's no bitterness, there's no resentment. It's a journey to that place, you don't come to that place overnight. And even when I lived according to the principles of the world, there are two kingdoms operating. The kingdom of the world and the kingdom of God. And in that kingdom, forgiveness is something so, I understand now that some people have a struggle. I always have, every single thing that I have is a gift from God. And even in those days, I recognize if you did me something wrong, you said something about me, I needed a minute, 1 minute, and I could just forgive you. My father was just like that. And I realized that he was given that grace. That is everything is grace, This man does not do anything on his own. So I have that grace to forgive. If you say something about me, I have that grace to forgive you and to respect your views. You don't walk around this world expecting everybody to say you're a holy man and bow down before you. You're not living in reality. Yeah. But they are still, whoever would say anything, they are still God's children too. And don't judge them and condemn them or they say this about you. Pray. It's just a simple prayer. That's what I do. Lord, these are your children too, Lord. I once lived in darkness. What you did for me, Jesus, do it for them. Because he loves them too. We are all his children.
Yeah. All right, well, and we just got going in a real sense, but that's the occupational hazard about this business is that we are out of time for now, but thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Former senior magistrate, now a man of God, Patrick Jarvis. That's 10 questions for this edition. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.